to Simpler. We are three pastors, husbands, and fathers on a journey to make life simpler by holding Jesus as the core for every belief and practice. This journey has shaped us to be more like Christ, freed us from the shame of failure, and encouraged us to a deeper love of our Lord and God. We invite you to join us in the discussions that have shaped and continue to shape our lives.
I have a hard time, I've seen some gross things that some people are doing, like in fast food restaurants with the food and that kind of stuff, and kicking the frozen hamburger patties around on the floor before they grill them and different things. Ugh. And
so, extra saltiness.
Yeah, they're putting them on TikTok and stuff, and rightly getting fired for it. But what about the people who aren't putting it on TikTok? And you're going and you're like, there's a little bit of grit in my burger today. Is that pumice stone?
There's a story that Nate Bargatze tells where he's
so funny.
He was at a McDonald's with a friend of his after a show, and his buddy went to the restroom. Their food came out. He went and grabbed it, and he was like, "I thought it'd be funny to take a bite out of my friend's sandwich and wrap it back up and put it down." And he said, so he came back and he opened the sandwich, saw the bite taken out of it, and immediately went to the front counter, bowing up. And he's like, I had to stop my friend from fighting every McDonald's employee that night. He was like, you didn't think for a second maybe I was messing with you? You didn't think
maybe my comedian buddy.
Yeah, no. He was like, I dabble in comedy. Maybe I'm making a joke at you. And he was like, what are you gonna do? He's like, also imagine if that was the case. Imagine the intensity of the McDonald's employee who's taking bites of people's food and sending it out.
That person, yeah.
He said, imagine you get to the back and the guy's just standing there with his hands in the grease pit and just staring at you has to pull him out to fight you.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Man. I love it.
Well, hey, we're not talking about McDonald's and food and pranks. Ryan, what are we talking about today, man?
It's sort of an abstract today, Pierce. We're going to talk today.
I like abstract.
Yeah. I don't in terms of art, but anyway.
I do in terms of art.
I know you do. You
own some of his abstract paintings.
The majority of them, yeah.
He owns 90% of my abstract paintings. I haven't done very many.
This is the Pierce collection.
Yeah. That's right,
yeah. So, and you have two or three that I actually really like, two pieces that I've done. But anyway.
Do you hate all the rest of the pieces that I own of yours?
I'm just, it didn't accomplish what I hoped it would accomplish.
That's a yes.
Yeah.
Let me just
every time he comes over, I hate this.
Well, anyway.
That's not what we're talking about today, Ryan. What are we talking about today, man?
Well, our topic today is a little bit abstract.
I like abstract.
The Groundhog Day loop. Just keep going. And so today we're going to talk about what it means as a Christian to be disciplined in various areas of our life for the sake of the gospel, how these things have an impact on our gospel mindset that we have as believers.
But Ryan, haven't we already talked about Christian discipline?
Well, yes, actually, Pierce, we have. But if you were paying attention to what I said a second ago, I said this topic's a little more abstract. So
I like abstract.
So what we want to do today is we want to talk about this idea that people, I don't want to throw everybody under the bus, but I think generally speaking, let me say it this way, being disciplined as a person in work, in finances, in hobbies, in pursuits, in goals, being disciplined as a person takes effort, takes energy. It requires intentionality. I have people all the time who will say to me something along the lines of, "Man, I wish I was as gifted as an artist as you are." And I don't know that I'm a gifted artist. I'm a practiced artist. And those things are very different. I just finished last month painting 770. Mm-hmm. And so my go-to answer now when people say, "Man, I wish I was a gifted artist like you," I'm like, paint 750 paintings and you will be. Mm-hmm. It's a skill.
You don't think that's true for everybody though. Because I think that's still something you have to be
disciplined.
No. I mean, I don't think everybody can paint. Everybody can draw.
Yeah.
I don't think if I painted 750 paintings, I don't think I could do it.
Yes, but so let me back up. I started very young because my dad was a decent pencil artist, and I started taking lessons from him, and then I took lessons growing up. So this is something that I have been involved in one way or another for a very long time.
Yeah,
and so it's not just the 700 paintings, it's
Right.
decades.
Well,
of work.
what I think just to add to it, I think what I'm saying that I don't think is contrary. I think it maybe just the extra piece is
Yeah.
you're disciplined in the thing that you tend towards.
Agreed.
You
100%.
you could have played sports your entire life and never played D1 football.
Correct.
Even if you had practiced more than anybody else.
Correct.
That's my point. Is like there still has to be a tendency towards something.
Yes.
But as the tendency is, like you could have had a tendency towards art, but have never practiced, and you would suck.
Yes. Agreed.
That's what you're saying.
Agreed.
It's not like you're not saying anybody can do anything as long as they do enough of it.
No. There's an intentionality to it. There's a pursuit of it. So for me, it's not just the 770 paintings that I've done. I've watched videos, I've taken lessons, I've tried techniques.
You were disciplined in learning the skill of the thing
Yes.
you had a tendency towards.
Yeah, and figuring out how that skill was going to manifest in me, because there are some artists who do photorealism, and it looks like a photo. It looks like a photograph that they just blew up and put on the wall, and there's no denying, wow, that artist is really talented. I don't actually like photorealistic art. Because if 3 people are really gifted photorealistic artists and we give them the same reference photo and they all do it in pen and ink, let's say, all those works are going to look the same if it's photorealism. You lose the identity of the artist, in my opinion, just my opinion. Again, not denying the incredible talent they have. I like the individuality. Anyway, so how do we as Christians take our tendencies, take our families, take our finances, take our habits, and discipline ourselves where the aim in this is, I want to use this for the glory of God. I want to make much of Jesus. Because I think what
in regards to the discipline of doing those things.
Of whatever the thing is. Yeah. So, and I don't think there's anything wrong with having hobbies. And I think what we tend to do, so like I love to write, and I will write stories or I've written a couple of books that are non-Christian. It's really funny because I wrote a nonfiction book for my boys, 30,000 words, and several people this was a couple years ago, who had kids my kids' age. I sent the book to them as well, just to kind of see what their kids thought of it. And a couple of people wrote me back and they were like, well, I'm kind of disappointed that it wasn't like C.S. Lewis, that it wasn't a Christian book with like a Christian allegory. And I was like, well, that wasn't my intent with it. Like my intent was to just write a great story. My intent was to tell.
This is nonfiction?
Yeah, no, fiction.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I might have said nonfiction. This was a fiction book I wrote for my
expecting
kids.
some kind of like documentary writing on like,
No. And,
let me tell you about the.
and so like,
I was just like picturing parents reading nonfiction to their little kids.
Where's Jesus in this?
yeah. So the thing is, like, I have to decide in the course of a week, I have to decide where my time is best utilized. So I love to paint, but if there's somebody in our church who's dying, I'm going to be at the hospital instead of painting, right? There's a discipline there where that has to be subservient to the gospel. And
because that's your job.
Well, I hate that perspective.
No, but I mean, it's a reality of like, what I mean is like, to use that example, the expectation is not that if like everybody goes to see people in the hospital.
Yeah, correct. So like part of my ministry,
yes,
and who I am, like you mentioned last week, Micah, like God had been calling you to ministry and you kept thinking, I want to play soccer. And so God broke your foot.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Right. So I want to teach people. I want to minister to people. I want to shepherd people. And when I'm holding up before me the opportunity to paint or the opportunity to shepherd people, shepherding people for me better fulfills the gospel call on my life. So that is the thing, right? It doesn't mean there aren't days that I don't go to the studio and paint.
Yeah.
I also enjoy that. And so how do we take the disciplines we have? So one of the things that you and I said, Micah, for
wait, sorry. How do we take the disciplines we have? We have what?
I'm skipping that part. So I'm switching gears. So
I'm just like, what are we talking about today?
yeah. So let's get back to this.
Okay.
Let me say it a different way. Start a different way. So you and I, known each other for 24 years. We have been doing ministry we've had more lean years than we've had abundant years. And one of the things that you and I have said over and over again is we will do whatever it takes to be able to do the ministry that God has called us to and to take care of our families, whatever it takes. And I think we've done that. I think we've sacrificed a lot and we've worked hard, and there have been times where we've been lean and didn't have the extra money for this or that or the other or whatever. We were on, I was talking about it on the drive out here. There was a time with, and it was a pride thing for me for a few weeks, but there was a time with, I want to say Asher, that we were getting the WIC. So we were getting our free milk and bread and eggs and cheese, and every single free thing that they would give us, I would go get. Like I did not have an ego for it after a couple of weeks, because it was like, so whatever we had to do, we would do. Right. And I've worked odd jobs. I've trimmed trees back in the day when I first moved here back 24 years ago, and I needed to make ends meet in the winter months, and I would go and trim trees so my point is that, like, I think our culture, I think discipline's hard for people. I think it's...
Sorry, backing up a little bit.
Yeah.
You still haven't told us what we're talking about yet today.
Help me frame it, because you know what I'm trying to say.
Well, I know. I think you're like jumping into the topic without giving us the topic. So you're talking about how we can be disciplined in our lives as believers with the goal of the gospel.
Yes.
Sorry, it was just like you didn't even let Pierce do the thing. Like you just started going into the topic. That's what I was saying.
No, he did the thing.
The question? Yeah.
Yeah.
Have we already talked about Christian discipline? Yeah, I asked that.
Oh, my bad.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
I missed it. That's what I was waiting for. I was waiting for you to... Okay, now I'm confused. My bad. That was my fault.
It's okay.
I was like, bro, why are you like just keeping going here when we haven't even like started? Like, I don't even know what the topic is
I'm
yet.
doing really bad at my
Sorry.
job over here.
No, that's funny.
Maybe it's a Chick-fil-A. That's why I was shocked. I was like, dude, you're like...
No,
like you're not
Why
giving
do
us
you
anything
keep talking?
specific. Like, why are you giving us details about something you haven't told us yet?
That's why I'm sitting here going, well, maybe I need to say it better. What am I missing?
What am I talking about?
Sorry.
No, you're
That's a
good.
brain fart on my...
So Micah is allergic to everything and is having an allergic reaction to the
Apparently.
Chick-fil-A this morning.
So just disregard everything I say in this episode.
It is funny how, I mean, like, it's not funny because it impacts you so much, but it's crazy the impact it does have on you and your dizziness or your brain fog or whatever. Like, dude, I do
Look
not.
a little. It just makes me sleepy.
Yeah. So let's start over.
Sorry.
So
I like abstract.
our topic today is a little bit abstract. So what we're discussing though is
apparently your example of doing a whole lot of simpler episodes doesn't work for me. Like,
no, it doesn't.
Give me any skills.
We're on season 5, man. Come on.
No, but the idea, like, okay, let's go strictly to 1 Corinthians 9.
What are we talking? I'm joking. I'm messing.
Well, you made a really great point last week in our topic that let's not just look at personal examples of what it looks like did God break my leg or did God give me a flat tire? Let's look at what the Bible says about these things. Yeah. So let's start this conversation in 1 Corinthians 9. And in 1 Corinthians 8, but the verses I want to come to are 1 Corinthians 9. So in 1 Corinthians 8, Paul is addressing the fact that some of the Corinthian believers are saying stuff like, nice. The Corinthian believers are saying, that was perfect timing. So the Corinthian believers are saying we can eat meat sacrificed to idols. And Paul says, yeah, you can eat meat sacrificed to idols. And he goes, but for the sake of the gospel, I'll lay down my rights, right? For the sake of the gospel, I'll lay down my rights. And he says, I'll become all things to all people. And this is the text where to the Jew, I become like the Jew, to the Gentile, or to those not under the law, I become like those not under the law for the sake of the gospel. So Paul is saying, I lay down my rights for the sake of the gospel. And then he mentions, do I not have a right to demand from you Corinthians payment for the ministry I'm doing among you? I do, but for the sake of the gospel, I haven't done that. By the way, side note, because it's a pet peeve of mine, people go, yeah, see, Paul never took money from anybody. That's not true.
Just them.
Paul never took money from the Corinthians because there was something in that would have prevented them from hearing what he was teaching. So
he did for everybody else.
Everybody else supported Paul. So you get down to the end of 1 Corinthians 9, and Paul says, do you not know that all runners in a race run, but only one receives the prize? Run in such a way as to receive the prize. He goes, I do not box the air with no purpose. I do not run without aim, but I discipline my body and I make it my slave so that I won't be disqualified from the prize. That's a whole nother, that last phrase is a whole different topic. But But Paul, in this context, is saying that the gospel figures into his thinking more than anything else. Now, he's talking about, he didn't take a wife. Some people think Paul was divorced. The Bible doesn't handle that. But Paul says, what Paul says is, do I not have the right to take along a believing wife, as do Peter and the rest of the apostles? Mm-hmm. He goes, I have that right, but I didn't for the sake of the gospel. Do I not have the right to demand money from you? I do, but for the sake of the gospel, I didn't do that. Do I not have the right to do all these things? I've laid all these rights aside for the sake of the gospel. And I think as Christians, like the language where Paul says, I beat my body and I make my body my slave, that's discipline.
Yeah.
That is training your body. That another translation says, like, do I not train my body? And I think just as a culture, a Western culture, I think we don't like discipline. We lack discipline a lot. And so what does that look like as a Christian to be?
You're distinguishing these from like what we typically call Christian disciplines.
Reading your Bible.
You're
praying.
Actually talking about is like, how do we have discipline in our life?
Yeah.
Because our goal is the glory of Jesus.
Yes. Yeah. So I know I've used this example before, but many, many years ago in preaching in these small country Baptist churches, there have been the 70-year-old men who take 30 minutes to get down the aisle to shake my hand and say, thanks for the service. And then there's the 70-year-old farmers who walk down the aisle and they grip you with this, and they've just got this vice grip and they've got muscled hands. It's always amazing to me, these old guys with these strong, thick hands that just, and I, probably 20 years ago, I said, man, I want to be like the farmer guy, not the guy, like, I want to be like that.
And you have to sell some apple and buy a tractor and buy some land.
So
sell some apples.
Yeah.
He said farmer.
Sorry, apple stock. My bad.
So, no, I knew what you meant.
Yeah. I was just making a different connection.
Yeah.
I want the farmer hands. You got to sell some apples, man.
Yeah. Well, from a very practical standpoint, my knees have been bothering me more this year than.
Oh, looks like you're trekking towards the old guy that has trouble walking down the aisle.
So here's the thing. I haven't been running this year. Last year I ran nearly 400 miles. The year before I ran 300 miles and I had no knee problems. And this year
your muscles aren't strong.
Yeah, so my knees are getting weak. So I am doing things intentionally right now to strengthen my knees.
Yeah.
Why? Because I want to be able to continue to be effective as a human. I'll be 50 in 10 months. That is not lost on me. I'm super excited about being 50, but I also know that if I'm not intentional about what I'm doing now, I will be less effective as a human being. Forget as a pastor.
Yeah.
I will be less effective as a human being if I don't make changes now.
Right.
So the way that I'm not just thinking about quality of life. I'm not. Like, that's not the only, like, I'm thinking about my effectiveness as a father, as a husband, as a grandparent. All of those things are gospel things for me, by the way.
Yeah.
Because my marriage to Michelle is a picture of the gospel.
Well, I think we could set that as a premise for everybody that would listen to this. Like, when we mention the things we do in life, for us three, the perspective is always, as believers, general as believers, it's gospel. So like, I think from now on we can just assume like people shouldn't remove that when we say stuff.
No.
When we say like, I'm an artist or I'm a father or a husband, like that is from Jesus being the core of my life.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And recognizing that God has given us, like, neither of you desire to be an acrylic artist or an acrylic painter, like me, but it's been part of who I am for years. It's part of me. Like, I love it. And to be able to, there is you might feel this a little bit in your woodwork, Micah, but like, there is something incredible about creating.
Oh, 100%.
And you design logos, Pierce, and you do it with ease, and you do like graphic design stuff. Like, there's something. Look,
that's the artist though.
Yeah, all three of us are creatives in one respect or another, but none of us are creatives in the same way.
Yeah.
And yet I think all of us probably go, man, like, there's something about being able to create that.
And I think that's what I was saying at the beginning is like, I think that
at the beginning you were saying,
are we doing
what's the topic?
Have
we started yet?
Are we even immersing yet? I think that like those examples fit for artists.
Yeah.
So from an artist perspective, like we feel that that joy of creating. And then you have,
and it connects you to Christ, and you think about God as creator.
And so you're not actually saying that discipline is creating.
No.
You're saying, like, as an artist, because I have a longing to create, I have to be disciplined in the pursuit of that creation if I'm gonna have success in any form in art, in creating. And I think, I mean, you've kind of been dancing around the negative of it for a while, but I think the negative is that it seems like there's a lot of culture.
I just don't want to sound like a butthole, but I'm about to be.
I'll do it. I'll say it. There's a lot. I'll just say it personally. I think there's a lot of people in my world who are not really interested in putting the work in whatever they're doing.
Oh, agreed.
And that's like, we were talking about this on the way out here, and I get that I like tend to be more driven than most people, but I hear people all the time say, well, I could just never get there. In so many facets of life.
Yeah, and whatever it is.
It's like you've given up before you've even started.
Yeah.
And it's like people assume if they don't have a driven personality, they can never get there. Right. And so that's I think, to your point, Ryan, what you're trying to say is there's so many things that could be accomplished in our life for the glory of Jesus.
Yeah.
In different facets. And I'm not saying like I am trying to catch a bass for the glory of Jesus. You know what I mean? I'm just saying like Jesus is the reason I do everything. He's the core of my life. And so, I mean, if I wanted to talk about bass fishing, like I'm gonna do trips with guys that don't know Jesus, right? I'm gonna do kayak fishing trips so like I'm utilizing that. And if I'm good at bass fishing or like competent where I can be on my own in a kayak and no one has to help me, they want to go fishing with me.
Sure.
Because I'm a fun guy to go fishing with, I guess. And we're going to catch fish together. So that's what I mean is like, I have to even be disciplined in those things. If I go, like the guys I fish with sometimes that don't know Jesus, like if they're having to like fix my bait caster every time I cast because it spools up because I suck at it, and if they're having to help me get back in my kayak, you know what I mean? Like
sounds like me on the fishing trip.
No one's gonna want to go fishing with me.
What happens when my waders fill up with water, guys? What do I do now?
There was one time on the Devil's River that I dumped my kayak in some rapids, and everybody had to help me because my stuff's just like floating down river. Anyways, but to your point, like, pretty much in anything we do, if we approach it with the perspective of I'm going to be disciplined in like getting better at this and accomplishing what I want to accomplish, then that's when you start to see the results you want to see. I honestly think a lot of times people's anxiety and stress in life is because they feel like they're not accomplishing something. I think just naturally we are naturally wired to be people that accomplish things. I don't think we're meant to just sit and do nothing.
Well, yeah, agreed. And I think the passivity of so many people is really what's crippling them. You know, so I have started saying lately in a Wednesday night Bible study, I don't think that there is any excuse, except for maybe age. I don't think that there's any excuse to be a stupid Christian. I think that we should be educated. I think that we should be able to have good conversations about the scripture. And the only way that can happen is for us to be disciplined to learn it. You take in the scripture, you engage in conversations with other people, you read the article that someone sends you, or you talk about it, or like look,
you're not talking actually even about hard work.
No.
You're talking about just the discipline of it. So for example, in your example now, if someone just watched Simpler Bible, you are
15 minutes a day, you're going to know the Bible a whole lot better in a year.
You're not asking someone to do a word study and like read 10 chapters a day. Like,
but like most people, something challenging comes up in their life, and most people's first response isn't to go, I wonder how I can use this, like we talked about last week. I wonder how I can use this for the glory of God. How can I know Christ better in this? But even that little effort right there, that is a discipline. That's disciplined life. To instead of just letting the circumstances of life just impact you, but to be able to pause and train yourself to go, okay, my life belongs to Jesus. How do I use this moment for the Lord?
To recognize, using Paul's examples, to recognize that you're actually in the race. It's not whether you're on the sideline or not. You're in the race. The question is, are you running?
And run like you're going to win. Like, I think people spend too much time about what if I'm not the best. That's not what Paul says. No. Run like it's going to be you. Put all of your energy into it. Put all of your effort into it. And I don't think that look, a lot of relationships in Christendom fail. Marriage relationships fail. And it is usually because of a lack of discipline in some area, or they didn't bring proper discipline to the relationship.
Yeah.
And I don't even, like you said, Micah, I don't even mean difficult things. I mean, they started off with a wrong premise of what marriage was for.
Yeah.
And so you train yourself to say, oh, marriage is for the gospel.
Yeah.
Marriage is for the glorification of Jesus. And if you can hold that in the forefront of your mind, it shapes the disagreements you're going to have. Because now, instead of a disagreement between a husband and a wife being about I'm right, you're wrong, it's about, okay, wait a minute. We disagree about this, but what we need to remember is that we're together to proclaim the gospel. Even in our disagreement here, just having the understanding that marriage is a proclamation of the gospel shapes how you handle your disagreements.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shapes how you handle your hard times and your challenges.
Which is you being disciplined in that relationship.
To think properly about it.
Yeah.
Right? Like people will say stuff like, well, we don't, and I think it's very important for husbands and wives to spend time together, like away from the kids, to have a date night if that's possible for you, but to do something, like honestly, if it's a frozen pizza and you're sitting down to watch Netflix together, but like where
chill.
Yeah. Where you guys are, together doing like that's important. And people are like, yeah, we just don't ever have time for that. You do. Like you're giving your time to something. You're giving your time to something.
Yeah.
And
Well, usually what people mean is they have an idea of what that's supposed to look like.
Right.
Like, hey, that means I got to spend, 3 hours between getting ready and going to a restaurant and then doing this, instead of saying like, what if it's 15 minutes?
Right. What's the intent here? The intent is for me to convey to this person that I care about them.
Go sit on the porch or in the backyard or somewhere for 15 minutes. And not saying that that's how it always should be, but I mean, you'd love for it to be more time.
You're just being intentional with the time you have. Yeah.
Right.
There's
an intentionality to it.
What's crazy is like how wise that can seem, because it's not the way our culture is structured to how they view certain things. And so they don't think, well, I don't have 3 hours for a full-fledged dinner, movie, whatever. So I can't do it. Lane Honey at our Impact Weekend earlier this year, that's one of the things that he talked about was like, I love the Lord and I want to spend time with him. But right now in my life, he was football stuff. He was school stuff. It was a busy schedule. And he's like, I had 10 minutes to school and after school. He's like, so what I started doing, I started listening to Simpler. I started listening to the Bible. These are the 20 minutes I have a day. What can I do with it to be intentional?
That's awesome. I didn't know.
For a 17-year-old, 18-year-old at the time, to be able to say that, like, what that shapes his whole perspective on life from me.
Yeah.
I mean, he is a more disciplined person than other people, but that doesn't mean that other people can't do that and view time in that perspective.
Okay, actually, let's hit on that. That's an incredible direction, I think. I have a feeling Lane is more disciplined because he was taught that discipline by parents who understand that that's important.
That's true. Yeah.
Right? So I understand that that's not where everybody is. Like, not everybody has parents or other people influencing you that way. But I will say this, if you're a believer, I guarantee there are people at your local church that can be that person for you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
If you, maybe the beginning of this for some people is to acknowledge that they suck at it.
Yeah.
I'm not very disciplined in very many things in my life. And I understand that there's an importance that I need to be, not Christian disciplines, but like be disciplined in accomplishing the things in life that I need to accomplish or that I want to accomplish, whichever one it is, but surrounding yourself with people who will teach you and influence you in that way.
Yeah.
Okay, example would be like, Pierce, I bet you wouldn't have houses right now, plural, had we not had conversations about the houses, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be doing any kind of real.
And then not only did you have that conversation, but you were disciplined to take the steps necessary to accomplish those things.
You're the only person I know who's actually like done that. But you were very disciplined in saying
like, you gave me free advice, man. Thank you for that.
But you had a goal. Like when you saw the picture, you were like, oh, here's where I could be. And you saw, I helped you see the path. I've done that for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And you're the only person who said, all right, I'm going to pull the trigger. And you did it. And sure, real estate's not for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be willing to do it. I get it.
Yeah, it's not for me.
Ryan's not super interested in real estate.
Yeah.
But the reason I think I had that drive and push is because someone else told me about the real estate thing.
Yeah.
And then my personality took over. I think my parents actually were really good in teaching me to be disciplined at things in life in general. So I learned that, but you didn't just hear an idea and say, that sounds cool. I wish that could happen.
Yeah.
I wish I could do that.
Yeah.
you don't make a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
And you live in a pretty dope house now, which is old, but you're remodeling it, right? And you're remodeling it with the money you made on an investment property, right? That you're rolling. So like, you are reaping the rewards of your discipline. And I think it's what people should at least start by saying, like, I'm not disciplined, because then you can at least, instead of spending the rest of your life going, I wish, you could go, okay, I'm going to at least take some small steps, small things to begin to be disciplined.
It doesn't have to be big.
No, you don't have to buy houses. Like that's it's a big risk, right? You took a big risk. I think I made you a little more comfortable because you. Yeah,
absolutely. And I had friends that needed rooms. Like there were circumstances, but like, so in my mind, it really wasn't that difficult. It really wasn't that difficult, Ryan. But you're right. It is. I can see how it was daunting, but whenever the reality was addressed to me and I walked through the steps of it, I was like, oh, okay, let's do this. Like, because I didn't allow the daunting nature or the initial, kind of like back to the whole 3-hour date thing. I didn't take my perspective and say, my perspective isn't what's going to happen, therefore I can't do anything. Right. What I said was, how can I shape my perspective and therefore take the proper steps to walk towards it? And so it's what's funny is most people would say it that way of like, gosh, it's a really big step. And my mind's like, well, no, it wasn't. But it was because of all the effort that went into processing all of it. I took the time to process it, walk through what you knew, did outside research, questions. Talk to the loan officers, talk to people, reached out to people who potentially could need rooms to rent. How does that affect me and my mortgage payment? So like I did all of the steps beforehand that pushed me towards that step, if that makes sense.
And I wasn't holding your hand through that. No. There were a lot of times I wasn't able to help you do whatever you like. You don't do remodel. No, but you've done a lot of remodel. Yeah. Right, because you were like, I have to get it done, and I'm not going to pay someone to do it
and stuff like that.
Yeah, but it's not like I'm not there every time. Like, hey, let me do this remodel for you, right? So you were disciplined in accomplishing that, and I know that that's a big example because it's something not most people are going to do. But I think you could take it in a small thing, like Grayson, for example, my 6th grader. He just started playing the guitar recently, cool, and he's like, I'm helping him a little bit, like a little bit. And he's like, I want to learn the guitar. So he goes and starts watching YouTube. Yeah. And he goes from me like trying to help him learn how to strum to like 2 weeks later, he's like strumming on his own, playing through songs. Like I told you, Pierce, he's probably going to be ready to like play guitar in youth probably in the fall. Yeah. Like he's that far along because he decided he wanted to play guitar and he was disciplined in just learning how to play the guitar. And you're not talking about a lot of time.
Yeah, it's just starting.
Just a few minutes every day, probably. It's like 10 minutes probably every day. He watches a video and works on it a second and then he's done. Just a little bit of discipline.
And it's built his confidence as well.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah. So like that, I mean, I know it's back to remodel, but like one of the things that most people are really scared of, and I understand the fear of it, is electric work. Like, and I was in that camp as well. Like, I can't do any of that. Like, I'm more scared. I'm like, who am I? Yeah, at the time you nearly should have died at Princeton. I remember being like, man, who would I call to replace these outlets and to do these? And I could find a handyman to do all these things. And then just through, I think it was, I don't know if it was at the church or if it was at Princeton. It was one of those places you had shown me how to replace an outlet. And I think that was the only thing, except for a couple of other things that we might have installed, where you like walked me through electrical stuff. But ever since then, I've had a confidence now where I'm mindful of the danger of it, but I'm not fearful of moving forward. So I think same thing with Grayson, like
that's a good point.
Taking the step forward and therefore having the confidence to continue to pursue, to continue to keep going, I think means a lot just with our perspective of anything in life.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's some big points, and this is probably some things you wanted to talk about, Ryan. Like relationships is one, like being disciplined in relationships, understanding the point of relationships, and then being willing to like work through relationships. I think too often people just get butthurt and then they just like go into a corner and they don't pursue
babies.
Which is probably most people. And I think that's actually I'm going to say that's our tendency as people. Another thing, so we can talk about that more if you want, but another thing is finances. I told you the guys this earlier. I am so frustrated now at how many times people will say something to me like, oh, I would love to like be in a different place financially. And I'll say things like, oh, have you heard about this? Or have you thought about this? Or like, here's some, here's some things I've seen, like some really creative ways to do that. Oh, I wish I had a different job on the side hustle. Hey, here's some things I've seen on like some online stuff you can do. Yeah. Almost every time people are like, well, yeah, that's you. You're just driven. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'm going to be quicker to pursue it than most people. Right. But that doesn't mean it's not available. Like, you're saying you're not willing to do, you just told me you would love to be at this place. And
you
I'm
implied
like,
that you were driven.
all right. And I'm like, well, let me give you some free thoughts on this. And you're like, I'll never be there. That's just you. Like, I don't understand it. And I think what it is I think we have come to a place culturally where we just want everything given to us.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's the freaking millennial perspective of everybody gets a trophy.
Dumb
Pierce.
millennials.
It's have y'all seen the videos of the millennial parents thing? They're like, a kid like throws something at the grocery store and they get down and start talking to him about like on their level, like, let me talk to you about your emotions right now. And while it's like kind of funny, it's like also kind of real.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, if I'm being honest, I think that is, I'm not actually going to blame the millennials. I think it's the millennials' parents' fault. I think it's the fact that we've come to a place in society where we think everything needs to be given to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the contrary of what we're talking about today. Like to be able to accomplish things, there is a sense of discipline. And I think you're right, Pierce. I think it's almost just a little bit of success that you need to go, oh, I can actually gain a little bit of confidence. Yeah. And then that's what makes you more driven.
Well, discipline is hard. Mm-hmm. It is. We talked about this on our spiritual disciplines podcast. I think that Hebrews 12, when it's talking about discipline, we tend to think of that as punishment, but it's training. It's what it means. Discipline is hard, but everything we're doing right now is training us for the kind of people we'll be in 5 years. Mm-hmm. It just is. Like if you are pursuing a healthy marriage right now, in 5 years, your marriage will be healthier. If you're passive about your marriage right now, there will be distance created in your marriage. It just will be if you're not serious about it now. So like, you have to decide. You have to decide that. Well, let's use Abraham as an example. God calls Abraham out and he says, "I want you to go to a place that you don't know, and I'm going to make you into a great people there." And Hebrews 11 tells us that Abraham did this because he was looking forward to the kingdom of heaven, the reward, the city of God. Like he had a forward-thinking mindset. Yeah. Like you have to have that to move you off of stoicism and to move you off of kind of just latency, there's another word. Yeah. Thank you. There's another word that I can't find it in my head, but the thing about it, so like Michelle and I, we met and within 2 weeks we're looking at rings. With 2 weeks after that, we were engaged. A few months after that, we were married. And Michelle had at that point between school and car and a couple of credit cards, not major on our credit cards, but
not major credit cards.
No, just not major.
Diners Club.
Yeah, she had about 90% of this was school and car, and so she had like $50,000 in debt. And so I said, "Look, let's get it paid off as quickly as we can." We were older when we got married. I was 31 and she was 29. We knew a couple of things. We didn't want to wait very long to have kids. 2, we knew that we would like if possible, for her to not have to continue teaching so that she could stay home with the kids. But we also knew at that point that Higher Rock Ministries was paying me $33,000 a year. So we knew that we had to get to a point where we could live off of that. And having debt was not going to enable us to live off of my income at that point. So we worked our butts off, sacrificed. We used almost every penny of her income to pay off debt. And we had it paid off, I think, in about a year and a half, between a year and a half and 2 years. Every extra bonus gift someone gave to us, we used to pay that off, which meant that we didn't go out to nice restaurants. If we ate out at all, it was Taco Bell, because we could eat there for like $8 and get full.
And then it just cleans you out anyways.
Exactly.
Right? It's a purge.
Yeah.
So we didn't have new cars. Like we had the cars that we had, and we drove them until basically we couldn't drive them anymore. Like we just were really careful. Yeah. We set a budget for ourselves. We gave ourselves an allowance of free spending money. We had a budget of $100.
What you used to call that? used to give you crap. Remember you do that? You used to call it blow money. And I was like, bro, you cannot call that blow money.
Yeah.
See Ryan and Michelle with lines in there.
There's at least 2 ways that can be interpreted that are really bad. Yeah. So we
I forgot about that.
I did too. So probably blocked it out. So we had $50 a month. Our date night budget for the month was $100, and so that's what we did. We each had $50 that we could spend, and we
That's
had
a lot of Taco Bell.
we had $100 for eating out in the month, and we stuck to it, which is why we were able to get out of debt so quickly. And it wasn't always pleasant, but on this side of things, like we've been able to do a lot of things because we didn't incur debt, and because like we've been so. And this is, this story, of course, Micah, but talking about being gospel minded, we were getting close to paying off our debt. And so we had started putting some money aside. So I'd get birthday money, or I'd get, Michelle would get something, or I'd get some Christmas money from my mom. And we had squirreled away $1,000. Like we had no savings except for this $1,000, none, because we were paying off the debt every month with Michelle's pay. And she was a teacher in the school system here for the first 6 months we were married. But then we moved to Tyler, and she worked at a little private school. So her pay got cut in half. And so we were putting literally every penny she made towards that. Well, here we were, we had $1,000. It was in the spring of 2007. And Micah calls and he goes, yeah, man, I'm heading down to Houston next week. And then after that, I got to get started on camps. And I think you had the Suburban at the time. And you said, I need new tires. Like my tires are like bald, like they're just bad. And I'm really nervous about taking them down to Houston next week. And then after that, driving all over for camps. I was like, man, I'm going to be praying for you that you can get that. I'm going to be praying for you that you can get that. And I would call you and say, hey, have you had the money yet? Have you had the money yet? And you're like, no. And I was like, well, what do you need? And you're like, I don't know, like $800 to $1,000. And I hung up the phone with you. I'll pray that you get that. I hung up the phone with you and I was like, oh, wait. I have $1,000. And we had started setting it aside for our anniversary 6 months later. We had started putting it aside. And because we had been disciplined, we had put aside this $1,000. And I just knew right away that, like, I didn't know right away. It took me a week of worrying about you. But then, like, after that last phone call, because you needed it, like in 2 days, you had to get tires like that day. It was like a Friday or something. So I drove up to Michelle's work, because she didn't ever have her phone on her when she was working at this daycare. And so I walked up, it was playground time, called her over to the fence. I was like, so that $1,000 we have, I think we need to give it to Micah. Here's why. And she goes, done, do it. And so this is pre-Venmo and stuff. So I told you, I said, go and put it on your credit card. The check's in the mail today. You'll have it by the time you get back from Houston. And so here's the point. We were very, very disciplined. We did deprive ourselves of some of the things that we would have liked to have done, but also our mindset wasn't, look, I think taking my wife on a trip, I think having time as a family, we just got back from Colorado where we spent 6 days in Colorado. And that's super important to me to create those memories with my boys and my wife. But what matters more than a vacation for me is the gospel. And Micah was going and going to be preaching all summer, and he needed help. And I was in a position for the first time in my life to be able to do something like that. And I did, and it took me back to zero. So discipline, it's not always pleasant, but like that was kind of a turning point for me, of being able to go, okay, like this is how I want to think about money. Mm-hmm. Like I have this to be able to do these things for people and be a blessing for people. And so
you had a goal.
Yeah.
And your point is like you're disciplined in accomplishing the goal.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's where the struggle lies for a lot of people is like, they're not, I think people have a hard time saying I'm willing to do what it takes to accomplish that goal.
Yeah.
Well, even if it's not a long-term goal, like paying off a huge chunk of debt.
Sure.
Like even small goals, like, I know this is like anecdotal. I heard Jordan Peterson say this recently. I think he said it a long time ago, but I heard it recently, where he said, the state of your room is probably the reflection of the state of you. So like if your room is really messy, there's a chance that your life's a mess, is what he's saying. And I don't think that's probably always the case, but I think he's like hitting on something. You know what I mean? That your willingness to be disciplined in something as simple as like, I'm going to like not leave junk all over my room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is probably like, that's a small accomplishment, but something I bet you walk into a room later and feel better.
Oh yeah. You're like,
if you're
That's awesome.
Yeah, and granted, like I'm probably bothered by that less than like Darren would be.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But I understand the point. Like,
Sure.
I'm still the mess doesn't bother me as much. It's probably still something I feel like if I had a goal, like, you know what, I'm gonna put my laundry up instead of just leaving it in the basket until I do laundry again. It actually does feel good. Like I spent 30 minutes or maybe less.
Yeah.
I did it, and then I'm like, man, it's nice that I can just like pull a shirt out of the closet and not have to dig through a laundry basket to get it. Like those are simple things you could do to be disciplined in that I think will begin to train you for longer term discipline things.
Sure.
I remember Katie, when she finally paid off that credit card debt. Do you remember her face? Like she was so ecstatic that she had finally come to a point, and that was a progression for her. I remember her talking to me about this years ago. Like we were still meeting at College Hills Baptist way back then. I think this was the first time we met there. And she was telling me about her credit card debt, and she had this perspective of like, I just don't know if I'm ever going to be able to get out from underneath this. And then through some years of discipline, finally did. And then just the joy on her face of like seeing her move out of that. So I think it's cool to watch people like get to a place where they start to see the joy of accomplishment in that kind of discipline. But I think there's overall, like, my guess is it's probably reflected in your spiritual life as well.
Yeah.
Like to your point earlier about knowing the scripture, like my guess is that,
and to your point, it doesn't have to be reading 2 hours a day.
No.
Yeah.
No. And there's I think there's a lot of proverbs that are probably in this like vein as well of like the joy of, or the beauty of having that kind of discipline and what it accomplishes in life.
Yeah.
You got something for us?
Well, I mentioned it before we started recording that one of my favorites just about the finances is Proverbs 27. And let's see, pull it up here. So it says, know well the conditions of your flocks, give attention to your herds, for riches do not last forever, and does a crown endure for all generations? When the grass is gone and the new growth appears and all the vegetations of the mountain have been gathered, the lambs will provide your clothing and the goats the price of a field. There will be enough goat's milk for your food, for the food of your household, and maintenance for your girls. And so, take care of your herds, take care of your flocks, be wise with them, because when everything goes to pot, when you don't have anything else, now your herds are going to be your clothing. Now they're going to be your food and your drink. And so like, there's wisdom to that. There's like, I think that, well, I think we as a culture like debt. We just, everything is debt.
Well, there's no question, because it's like 90-something% of currency right now is debt.
Yeah. So the world is all about debt, and that lacks discipline. Look, we were in a position 2.5 years ago where we had to buy a car. I guess there can be debate about what kind of car we needed, but Michelle's car had 160,000 miles on it. Mine, you couldn't take it on, you couldn't get it to go faster than 50 miles an hour. And
at least the passenger door opened on its own.
Yes. But it was one of those things that it was like, because we've been disciplined with our finances, we're able to do that. We're able to make those payments. And I think, but my goal, I would like to have the goal or the mindset that my money doesn't ultimately belong to me. Now what some people do, and I think this is a little bit extreme, I think it's not culturally relevant. So what some people will do is they say, you shouldn't have any savings at all as a Christian, because, and these are extreme people, right? But they'll say you shouldn't have any savings at all as a Christian. To have any savings at all is not to trust the Lord. And then they typically will point back to something like manna. And so you're like, see, God provided for them on a daily basis. Yes. God also eventually led them into the promised land, and the manna quit when they had the surplus of the food and the livestock and those kinds of things. So I'm not saying there aren't seasons.
Which is funny because that's a picture of salvation.
I know.
So are they acknowledging they're not saved?
Yeah, right? So you get manna because you're not a Christian. I don't know. But then you got the other people who are like, we should all be blessed and have a ton of money. I don't know. It's a stupid thing. But
they're just Egyptians.
Yes. But the point of it being that like we have people who are like, no, you have to have a poverty mindset. You have other people who are like, no, you have to have a wealth mindset. And I think both are wrong. I think the aim is to have the mindset of, in whatever circumstance I find myself, I want to honor Jesus. But I'm not going to be stupid either. I don't want to be unwise. So like, there is, whether it's your health, like, look, I am not nearly the conspiracy theorist that you are, but I have.
I'm not. I hate that phrase. The CIA created that after they killed JFK.
Yeah. So it's not a theory.
No.
It's straight up conspiracies. I don't believe probably in as many conspiracies as you believe in, but I definitely believe in conspiracies, and I am definitely suspicious of the pharmaceutical industry. I am not saying I'm not going to take Tylenol for a headache. I'm definitely going to take Tylenol for a headache or to bring my kids' fever down or whatever. I just know that because we lack discipline in our world, you have a lot of, it's hard to find a doctor whose first response isn't to say, well, take this drug. It's hard to find a doctor who will say, look, let's try this for 6 months. If you change this and change this and change this, it might handle your blood pressure, or it might handle this cholesterol level, or it might handle these headaches that you're having. Like, let's try being healthier first, you know? But most people aren't interested in that. And I think that I think people, it's what you said a moment ago, Micah. People will say stuff like, man, I'd really like to be more financially independent. And people say, man, I'd really like to be healthier. Man, I'd really like to know the Bible better. Man, I'd really like to have a greener yard, whatever it is. But people don't do the work.
Yeah.
I, for example, my dad, growing up, we always had the best yard on our block. We were not rich people, but my goodness, our grass was the best grass. Everybody else's grass had stickers in it. Ours didn't. People would play tag or whatever in our front yard on our little block.
Well, no wonder you guys are poor. You know how much that costs?
I know. I do now. Like, I'm wondering, this is why we couldn't buy a 2-liter of soda, because we had to have green grass. I don't actually care if my grass is green. I would like it more if it was, but it's going to be 104 degrees today. Like the work that I would have to do, and also out where we live in Dove Creek, we're on water restrictions, so we can water once a week. You water your grass once a week, it's going to help, but it's not going to stand up against our summers, you know? And then we have a 5-acre field next to us where all these stickers are blowing across. And it's just, and at this point in my life, it might change when my kids are gone and but like at this point in my life, I'd rather go play basketball with my boys. I'd rather go, you know, like there's other things I'd rather do.
Yeah.
And so I'll even go back to what you said a moment ago. Yeah, I agree. Cleaning up the clothes on the floor, putting them up, that can be rewarding in itself. For some people, it won't be rewarding at all because that's not the thing for them, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But what I think we have to do is recognize, I think people make the mistake of going, man, I'm lacking discipline, like you pointed out a moment ago, Micah. They finally get to the place where they're willing to acknowledge that. I'm lacking discipline. And I think what people do is they dive into the deep end instead of starting off slowly.
Yeah.
Like even really good personal trainers will tell you, don't try to do everything today. Like let's start small. Like, okay, can you cut out, you know, a soda at lunch? Like can you today, right? You couldn't, yeah. Can you today make it a point to walk for 10 minutes? Go for a 10-minute walk. Because if you haven't been walking, a 10-minute walk every day is going to be really good for you. That's going to be a beneficial for you. So I think that what people miss is that the way that I study the Bible now, for example, is different than the way that I did 29 years ago when I started. 29 years ago, I was reading for just a few minutes a day. And now I spend a lot more time studying and reading articles and reading books. And but the discipline's the same because the desire is the same. Yeah. The goal's the same.
I actually think it's a value system.
Yeah.
So like if someone tells me I'm not disciplined, I would say then you don't actually care.
Yeah. It's not,
I don't know how else to play that out. Like there's, you know, something else I see a lot is like, specifically in finances, I feel like people think they know finances better than they do.
Yeah.
And maybe that's us too. Well, no, I know that's the case because there's like, I've been following a lot of people trying to learn some like, some tax stuff lately. Yeah. And so many things I didn't know. And even like stuff like every CPA knows that I didn't know. Like, for example, did y'all know that the death tax doesn't really take place unless it's over an estate over 12 million?
No.
So like because I was thinking like, how can I help my dad structure his like assets to where we don't have to like pay a whole lot of taxes? Sure. And when he died, and then I found out it doesn't really matter. So like when he dies, whatever the appraised value of his house is when he dies, and the estate goes to us. that's the value of the house that we would claim capital gains against. So he'll say he bought the house for $100,000. He actually bought it for less than that, but then it's worth 400 when he dies. I don't pay capital gains on 300 of that. I don't pay taxes on what he bought it for. I pay taxes on the difference between what it's worth when he dies and turns it over to us. So like, there's a lot I don't know that I'm learning. But I mean, in terms of finances, like there's a lot of people who will say, well, no, I've got it. I've got finances. And I think that pride is what allows us to think we're in a better place than we are.
Yeah.
If we can back up and go, you know what, my goal is to be in the best place I can be financially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you just glean as much as you can from everybody without the necessity to prove to everybody that you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like who cares? Like you guys know this. We've talked about it, but like $100 a month invested from 25 to 65 is like 1.5 million or something like that. 1.3. I can't remember, something like that.
It's right in there.
$100 a week in that same time frame is like 5 point something million. And if you invested in an index fund or something that is like just industry standard, gaining like 10 or 11% a year on average, right? So $100 a month you invest into that, which is probably more than or less than what people spend on fast food every month typically.
Yeah, for sure. If
you invested that in just a basic index fund that gained 10 to 11% over the course of that time, you would have over $1 million.
And if you wait 10 years and you don't start until you're 35, that
goes down a lot.
It goes down to about 800,000.
Right.
You miss out on like $400,000, $500,000.
And then I just heard this stat recently. I forget exactly what it is, but like a huge percentage of people between like 65 and 75 right now have less than $100,000 to their name.
Oh yeah.
Like in their,
I believe it.
And so what that means is that people's value system hasn't been, I want to, the proverb, I want to protect the flock for the future when there's not there. That hasn't been their mindset. Their mindset has been, I'm more concerned about the here and now.
Yep.
I know so many people that make a pretty good amount of money that have nothing to show for it.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to debate the like right and wrong of like how you spend your money. I think it's a value system that I'm debating.
Yeah.
Like if your perspective is, I want to be kingdom minded. Here's my question. How can you be kingdom minded if you're poor, even though you make a lot of money?
Yeah.
I know that seems weird, but like there's a lot of poor people that make a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's a mindset of how can you help out in the body of Christ? How can you support kingdom work
if your money belongs to everybody else?
Right.
Because of debt.
So it's what I'm saying. It's a value system. I'm not going to get into the weeds of like, should you buy this or that? What I'd love to say is like, what's your value?
Right.
When you look at money and finances, what's the thing that's valuable to you in it? Is it you? Is it your personal enjoyment, or is it kingdom?
Yeah.
And I think that's where I personally think that's where people struggle with the discipline of finances as believers, is that their value system is off.
Yeah.
And I think you could probably play that out in relationships, in work, exercise, like all these things is because your value system is off.
Yeah. Well, we value, look, Riker, my youngest, has lately been really hooked on Whataburger. He's like, man, I just love their cheeseburgers. And I like a Whataburger burger. And we're on summer vacation, so our mindset just automatically is a little more lax, and you're a little like, it's funny how your mind, your mind perspective, what's the word I just used?
Shifts?
Yeah, it shifts. Thank you. Like, golly, did I eat something I'm allergic to?
Chick-fil-A too, yeah.
Let's start.
What are we talking about today?
I know, I need to begin. But it's, and you don't have a bedtime because you're not getting up at 5:45 to get the boys to early practice. And, it's just more laid back. So he's like, Dad, he just got braces yesterday. And he's like, Dad, he goes, to celebrate my braces, we should get Whataburger. and I got to tell you, that argument almost won me over.
Good
idea. Like it almost, I was like, yeah, right. Like there's a part, but, and I can do that from time to time, but I looked the other day because they have a special burger right now. The smokehouse burger or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it's so good. And it's 2 patties. And right there next to it, it says for that meal, which is the burger and the fries, 2,000 calories.
Not including the drink?
Not including the drink, which I don't drink my calories. I don't. I like unsweet tea. So I would rather eat my calories.
Yeah, you just drink your kidney stones.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there going, okay, I'm allowed 2,400 calories a day. There it all went, because I love their spicy ketchup too. Mm-hmm. And I'm eating several of those, and that's like 60 calories per, So I'm like, my entire day's calories are gone in one meal. And I'm going to do that.
That's why we run.
Yeah. I'm going to do that from time to time.
Yeah.
That's not the lack of discipline.
I was going to say I think some people assume that's a lack of discipline.
Yeah.
No, I think discipline is like shooting towards a goal and doing what it takes to accomplish that
Absolutely.
goal. Yeah. You mentioned it with art earlier. Like, I don't think you would have said you were undisciplined early on when you weren't as good as you wanted to be yet.
Correct.
You were doing what it took.
I was moving towards that goal
to get that direction. And I think it's it. It's like these, sometimes, I think for some people they're baby steps and for some people they're bigger steps, but you got to start taking the steps. Paul says that everybody's in a race. Run as if you're going to win the prize.
Yeah.
Only one person wins. And I know he's not talking about finances and relationships, but it's
literally, those are the two things he mentions in the chapter 9, finances and relationships, because he's not requiring money from the Corinthians and he doesn't get married.
Yeah, but I'm talking about.
I know, but I'm not like literally. That's what he's
not talking about personal finances
no, but I think they fit into the conversation.
Yes, agreed.
So his aim is the gospel, and so like some people look. I want to be effective. I want to be effective throughout the day. I want to be effective as a friend, a father, a husband. I want to be effective as a minister. I want to be effective. I have come to learn that for me, I need about 8 hours of sleep a night. And if I do 6 hours of sleep, I can do that for about 2 days, but then I'm going to have 2 days where my body's just like, you're done. Other people, like my dad, he functioned really well on 5 hours of sleep a night and could do it. I just can't. I'm not built that way. So what I've learned is if I have to be up at 5:45 in the morning, for me to be effective tomorrow, I need to be in bed 8 hours and 15 minutes earlier than that so I can be asleep and get my 8 hours. Mm-hmm. And for some people, honestly, like it's just turn off your phone, turn off the computer and go to bed. Yep. And so we're not talking about things that are intrinsically difficult.
No.
It's just discipline. It's what matters more to you. And now that we're talking about it, maybe Whataburger will matter more to me tonight than my personal health because it sounds pretty good, except for the construction happening between me and my house now takes 45 minutes to get to town. So, but start small.
I will say this. I think that discipline in the small things in life is probably reflected in the big things in life.
100%.
In the same way that we would say that like a heart of like a giving heart, a generous heart is reflected when you don't have money in the same way it's reflected when you have a lot of money. I think discipline's reflected in that way. And again, this is what you're saying, Ryan, about Whataburger. I think discipline might look different for different people.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like you're going to make a list.
Yeah.
And it's going to be like, you're knocking out that entire list. I hate that. I just want to burn the list.
Yeah.
But just give me a goal.
Yeah.
And then turn me loose. Like, don't tell me how to do it.
Yeah.
Don't tell me the instructions on, just like say, here's the goal and need you to accomplish this and then let me do it because that's my personality, right? Some people that might look way different. That might be like baby steps. Like, hey, here's this goal I want to accomplish. Can someone help me learn this first little hurdle?
Sure.
I just want to step over this first hurdle.
Sure.
Then can someone hold my hand through the next one? That's still discipline of saying, someone come alongside me and help me do it. So discipline doesn't innately mean that you have to do it on your own.
Yeah.
Some people do it on their own. I'm probably always going to do it on my own.
Well, I had a really good conversation with somebody 3 or 4 months ago now, and they were just expressing some dissatisfaction in their life in general. And I was just like, well, like what? And they're like, well, I don't know. I think I want something different for my career. And I was like, well, cool. What are your options? And they're like, well, I'm not really in a place right now where I can change my career because, like I make the primary income for our family. And I said, well, I happen to know from your spouse that you guys have a lot of money in savings. You guys have plenty of money in investments. Like worst case scenario, like you live off of your savings for 6 months. Like what's the thing you want to do? And the person started going, well, I really kind of want to do this, but I don't know what that looks like. I kind of want to do this. And I was like, well, try. Like your spouse has already told you, I'm here for it. Whatever you want to do. Like, why would you spend the next 30 years doing something you don't want to do when you're talking about a rough 6 to 12 months?
12
it's
years.
Just 12 years.
when you're talking 6 to 12 months transition point, and then you'll be back and you can afford to do it because you've been wise with your finances to this point. Your house is paid off. Your cars are paid off. You don't have any debt. Like, this would be the best time to go and do it. Mm-hmm. And they're like, really? And like, you could see the little light in their eye.
A little encouragement.
Yeah. And so now, like I hadn't talked to them in a while about it. And so they sent me an update the other day. They said, hey, So I'm working on some stuff. And I'm like, that's what I want to
cool.
hear, you know? And the 6 to 12 month window won't start yet because they're right now laying the groundwork, and they're asking some people some questions like, what would this look like in your career? What does this look like in your career? And they're honing their dream, but they're going to get there.
Yeah.
Because for one, they have a very supportive spouse. For two, they've been really, really wise up to this point. So they have the room to kind of go, all right, and the people they work for, they went to the people they work for and they said, look, I just need you to know I might be leaving in a year.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, yeah, whatever you need to do. Like, we're happy to have you here. And if we can change that, or if we can help something, let us know. So I'm like, you have everything in your favor. It really is just a matter of getting off the couch and putting one foot in front of the other. Like, just try.
Yeah, just take steps.
Yeah.
Just start taking steps. And I think I've realized this, Pierce, you make me keenly aware of this, or you have recently, that I think too often someone looks at me as someone who's really driven and goes, that's what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not always, like, I'm not going to be what it looks like for everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
My tendency is to run headlong into whatever risk there is and like, let's go, I'll figure it out. But that's not, so for some people, for probably most people, it needs to be baby steps. Like, take smaller steps.
Well, and I feel this pretty strongly. Don't whine about your situation or complain about your situation if you're not exercising some level of discipline to change it.
Sure.
Like,
we run into this all the time. The one thing I love about the U.S. is like the way our system's set up is you can get a job.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It might not be the job you want. It might not be the job that helps your pride.
Yeah.
But there is a place for you to get a job. Sometimes it means you might have to pack up your family and like scrape along to get to another place where there is a job, but there are means for you. Like there was a place, I don't know what it's called now, but there was a place called Labor Ready in San Angelo for a long time where you just showed up and they would have jobs available with other companies
for 12
shipping
years.
you out for 12 years over here, companies. So like there is a place, you know what I mean? Like there are things to do. Britton and I were talking about this a while back. Like we would both do the same thing, something similar. Britton's like, if I got in a position where like I was like in dire straits, I would go rent or have someone rent or borrow a pressure washer and just start going door to door and telling people I'm going to pressure wash your houses. Like Seth hasn't really done it much yet, but like he started painting people's curbs, like the curb numbers at their house. Like there's things to do. And I understand that it's like coming out of my mouth, people struggle with it because it seems like I'm just going to come up with ideas, and maybe I have more ideas because I'm wired that way, but there are opportunities. Yeah. If someone's like financially, like, I want to make a little more money. Well, there are a ton of side hustles to do. Yeah. A ton of side hustles to do. Yep. The reason you don't have them is because you haven't put the effort in to figure out what that is or what works for you. Yeah. There's a ton of stuff out there to do. Brady brought the Jeep from Brady. He used to like, he figured out how to do leather work, and he told me he sold enough leather work around Christmas time for them to buy all their Christmas gifts with his leather work. That's dope. So like there's so many things. I don't think you have to be an entrepreneur to do those kind of things. No. I think you just do it. Like do, to your point earlier, Ryan, do what it takes to accomplish whatever goal you're after. And I think that kind of discipline will play out in every other aspect of your life. Yes. Maybe start with the small things and then move forward. Because I think it's just the stepping. Like you just got to take the steps and move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a guy one time who, I know we've said this a lot throughout the entirety of the podcast, but I think this is one of the biggest walls that people have, is just thinking or realizing it doesn't have to look all the same or just like everybody else. There was a kid that I used to tutor years and years ago. I was 21, so 13 years ago. And he was just like, man, I had no idea what I'm doing with my life. He's like, I kind of like economics, but like that's a lot to like learn and stuff. But this kid like doodled all day long, just nonstop drawing. And I remember asking him, like, is that just kind of like a listening thing that helps you listen? And he's like, no, man, I love art. And then just hear him talk about how much he just loved being able to put pen to paper and just talk about it. And I was like, well, why don't you do anything with art? He was like, I can't do anything with art. It's not a real job. And so he started talking about all the real jobs, right? He started talking about real estate.
I still agree with that.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so
he didn't even
he didn't know. But I was like, well, how would you want to implement it? He was like, dude, I also love tattoos. Like, I love tattoos. And I was like, why don't you be a tattoo artist? He's like, well, again, he kept saying it's not a real job. I was like, who cares? I was like, this is something that you like. And
it's not a real job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, I started following a guy on Instagram the other day who showcases like some of the greatest tattoo artists around the world. And as an artist, I'm sitting
It's
here
insane,
going,
dude.
yeah. And the guy is very salty in
Are you
his
gonna do it?
language. No, I have no interest in being a tattoo artist, but it's a different skill set. Like it would be starting over for me. But I almost sent you every single one of these videos, Pierce. Like,
they're great.
but I would have just kept sending them to you because I was like, because once I fell into that hole, I was like, oh my goodness, like it's unbelievable the work these people can do.
But anyway,
not a real job.
I know, yeah. So like, but I changed the perspective of like, it doesn't have to look just like you don't just have to look like everybody else. And then we lost contact after that time, but he's a tattoo artist in San Angelo.
That's awesome.
And so like, knowing him that like, I don't know if it was because of our conversation, but I know that he put the effort towards it. I know that he's refining his skill, that he's pushing, but it took that shift in perspective for him to begin to pursue it as something that should be honed in on, that should be applied discipline towards. And so, yeah, now, I mean, I know I don't know if he's a co-owner of the shop, but he's been in the same shop for a while now. And that's his job. He's got a wife and he supports it. So from my understanding, like that's what he does.
That's cool.
And it took that shift of like, oh, my life doesn't have to look like everybody else to, or the way that I pursue this doesn't have to look like everybody else.
Yeah.
I can just pursue it the way that I'm thinking about it.
I really think people should start with small goals.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you find yourself at a place where you admit you are not great at discipline, like start with some really small goals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Don't make it like a career thing, don't say like I want to have $1 million. Like start with some small goals.
Well, I'll tell you that like simpler Bible even has required way more time than either Colin or I expected.
Mm-hmm.
But we are both 100% convinced it is worth the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it requires time, 15 to 20 hours a week for each of us.
Mm-hmm.
And if I was going to be undisciplined in that, then it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And it falls flat. But the efficacy of it is because of Colin's discipline and my discipline. Like we're creating something. And so you don't just start there though.
Yeah.
Because this would have kicked my butt if this was my first thing.
Mm-hmm.
I have one last thought. I don't think we should compare ourselves to other people in the pursuit of this kind of discipline.
No.
Agreed.
Because I think that's a downward spiral.
Yeah.
There will always be someone better. There will always be someone more successful. And so if you're comparing yourself, I think you're going to always find yourself disappointed.
Yeah.
So don't compare yourself to other
Baby
people.
steps.
Yeah.
Baby steps.
In fact, flip it, put your pride aside and try to glean from people who've been doing it for a while or who are more successful at that thing than you. Try to learn from them.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Agreed.
So you said something a second ago, Micah, that I think was a good, simpler view, but I don't remember what it was.
I had Chick-fil-A, so I can't remember what Ryan even started this with.
Are you ready to start this one?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
I'll go hit record.
I mean, I think that like kind of the direction we went was there is a huge benefit in life to having discipline in different areas.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it
makes life easier in the long
makes
run.
life easier. I do think that also your discipline in your pursuit of the glory of Jesus is probably reflected some, at least, in the way that you do normal life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If your normal life is I could give a crap about pursuing anything, I'm just trying to make it through the day, that's probably how you're pursuing life for the glory of Jesus as well.
Yeah. And I do think it's easier. This could just be a me thing. If I am disciplined in one or two areas of my life, I tend to be disciplined at least to some level in most of the areas of my life. And once I let one of those start sliding, they all kind of slide.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, maybe what I meant by comparison too is don't let other people's standard of discipline be your standard of discipline.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. Because
you're not even gonna
the
have the
people
same
around you
goals.
might be expecting your baby steps to look a certain way,
Right.
and then you get discouraged. Like, well, I'm taking the steps, but the steps don't look good. And
Right.
It just becomes a
And
whole
then,
mess.
and then there's going to be a
things.
Darren always who sees your car with all the mess, and he's going to be like, "You're a slob."
My-
when he didn't see it the week before, and this is like way better than
My favorite side of the internet are people trying things, whether it's a weight loss thing or a new job thing, and then all the people who are like throwing support their way.
That's cool.
Who are like, man, that's amazing that you're doing that, because the internet can be a very mean place.
I was going to say that other people are like, my favorite side is the fails.
Yeah,
right.
Those are funny, but like, I love it when you see like, there's this one guy that he pops up every now and then on my feed, and he weighs 385. And he shared a comment in his reel, and it was like 385, like whatever, man, you're a slacker, you're a slob, you're all this stuff. And then he goes, for those of you who don't know, and then he posts a picture when he was over 500 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, this is a goal for me. Like, look, this is what I've been doing. I'm walking. I'm being more careful with this. Like, and then there was another. I love the support though, where people are not trying to go, well, you're doing it wrong. They're just excited that somebody's trying to do something.
Yep.
I saw a video of a guy, some very similar story. It might be the same guy. The whole video started with him kicking. He put his hand out and he kicked it, and he was like, "You guys see that? Watch this!" And he kicked his hand, he's like, "That might not seem like a lot to you." He's like, "But I haven't been able to even remotely move this way in years."
Yeah.
And he was like, and then he's like, "Watch it again." He just kept kicking his hand, and he was just so excited. But like, that doesn't seem monumental. It doesn't seem like big steps or whatever to a lot of people. But for him, it's like, I've put forth the effort. I'm pushing towards this, and my goal wasn't to kick my hand, but look what I can do in the midst of it. I can kick my hand. So
he could look at one of the fitness influencers who's like perfectly shredded, and be like, I suck. Or you could go, they're not the standard for me. I'm just trying to move forward.
All discipline creates reward.
Absolutely.
All discipline.
Absolutely.
Ooh, there's a verse about that actually.
We'll find later.
Yep.
Tune in next week. Well, hey, everybody, we are at the Garden Audio as always. Stephen mixes and masters the audio for this podcast, and so we are so grateful to him. Wherever you are, leave a comment, leave a like, just let us know. Let Stephen know that you're thankful for him. He puts in the work, the effort, the discipline to make this sound great for you guys. So we appreciate him letting us come out here and record this. Look in the show notes down below. You'll see everything going on in our personal lives, as well as the podcast social media pages linked, as well as Simpler Bible, as well as Micah's ministry, Micah's website page, where you'll learn more about his ministry, as well as, I believe listed down below is Eagles Wings Facebook page. And so if you're interested in seeing anything else that we've got going on within the Simpler community, go check it out. May it be in our personal lives, may it be tagged into the church or to Simpler Bible. There's a lot of resources and stuff that we have down below, as well as the social media tagged. And so if you're curious about our thoughts on whatever, if you have a topic you want to pitch for us to discuss, be sure to message us through social media. It's going to be the best place to reach out to us, at simplerpod on Facebook and Instagram. Go give us a holler over there. And hey, as always,
Proverbs 14:23.
Well, that was the cliffhanger, man. Now you just gave them the answer.
They're never
coming back, Ryan.
All hard work brings a profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty.
Yeah, it does.
Sorry.
What could be simpler than that,
Yeah.
Keep Christ's core. What could be simpler than that? We'll catch y'all next week. Bye.
It's better to live on the corner of a roof than with the chorus of life.
That's right.
That's next.
That's hard work.